Fluted furniture is all over the place in this year's home decor trends, and there are incredible examples of it for sale on sites like Anthropology and West Elm. And the furniture painting and DIY communities have jumped right in and have created so many of their own beautiful versions. I've been wanting to try my hand at this trend for months now, and I've just been waiting for the perfect piece of furniture to cross my path. Bam! This dresser was posted for free out at the curb on Facebook Marketplace, and as soon as I peeped those funky legs and the nice flat drawer fronts, I knew this was the one. It is pretty trashed. This is MDF and laminate over a wood skeleton with a really torn up top, but oh so much potential. This is going to be the perfect base for the new design that I have in mind. First things first, I gotta get this thing cleaned up. I love these authentic mid-mod pulls, but they're really hard to grab onto. There's only enough for half of the dresser, so I'm definitely going to tuck these away and save them for another piece, but they are not going to be staying on this one. Now that I have the big stuff out of the way, I'm going to give everything a really good wash down with some of this all natural TSP alternative to remove any grease or grime. Spending this time to really thoroughly clean your piece inside and out is a great way to give it a good thorough inspection and make sure everything is working properly. On this one, I found that one of the nylon drawer guides on the back of the drawers was broken, so I'm gonna have to replace that later on. After everything was dry, I noticed that the top of this piece is actually in much worse condition than I originally thought. It is crackling and bubbling all over the place, so I'm gonna try and save it. My first step is going to be to give it a really good sanding with a coarse 80 grit sandpaper to see how much I can actually smooth things out. After that initial sanding, it was much smoother than what I started out with, but there was still a lot more texture than I was happy with, and I got to fill in that big crater right in the middle. So I went ahead and did a skim coat of some lightweight wood filler over the entire top surface. While I wait for all of this wood filler to dry, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the trim that I'll use to do the fluting details on the drawers. I've seen several different materials to do this technique online, but this was the only one that I could get my hands on at a local hardware store. I picked up a whole pile of these 8-foot long sections of half round molding from Lowe's. They are pine and pre-primed, and like I said, was really the only option that I could find in the store. So I went ahead and measured the height of my drawer. It worked out to be 165 millimeters. And now I need to cut down those 8-foot lengths of trim into a whole bunch of teeny tiny pieces. This is going to take me a while. And since I need to cut up a million little pieces of trim, I think this is a great time to pop on a new audiobook while I work and tell you guys about my friends at Audible who have kindly sponsored this video. With a massive library of bestsellers, new releases, business and self-help titles, Audible lets you listen to an endless supply of spoken word entertainment all in one app. Every month, members get 1 free audiobook credit and full access to the Plus catalog, which is packed with Audible original titles, podcasts, guided meditation, and so much more. I just used my monthly credit to buy Jenny Lawson's Broken in the Best Possible Way. It is a super refreshingly honest and relatable chat about anxiety and depression, mixed with a whole lot of humor that is reminding me that we are all imperfect and messed up, and that is what makes us all awesome. New Audible members receive a 30-day free trial, and who doesn't like free stuff? So go visit audible.com/Katie Scott or text Katie Scott to 500-500 to try Audible today. After cutting up the first few 8-foot lengths, I decided that I could handle cutting 3 pieces at once. So I marked my saw off with a little piece of painter's tape so I could just line up the trim where it needed to be, cut, and move on down the line. It was definitely a much faster way of doing this, but it still took me about an hour to get all of these pieces cut. I gave all the drawer fronts a quick sand with some 180 grit sandpaper to give them a little bit of tooth, and then I started spreading out some Gorilla wood glue in small sections and sticking on my trim. After every 8 or so pieces, I used a straight edge to make sure that they were all level and lined up evenly across the bottom edge of the drawer, and I'll fix up the top edge a little later on. I decided not to add any nails to the trim because it's super lightweight and I was afraid that they would just split or shatter if I tried. After the glue was fully dry, they were completely stuck down to the surface, and I can't imagine these coming loose over time. After I had all 6 drawers covered with the trim, I set them aside to dry overnight and turned my attention back to the top of the dresser. I sanded down my filler with some 220 grit sandpaper this time, and it felt pretty good after that. The next morning, I grabbed my sander again with some coarse 80 grit and sanded down the top edge of the trim so that everything was nice and flush. I also added a little extra wood filler into the seam where the trim and the drawer front met so that it looked really neat and finished when the drawer was pulled open. I gave everything a coat of Bin shellac-based primer, and then I had another look at it. Sometimes it's really hard to see imperfections until you've got some paint on your project, and I definitely had some more finessing to do before I could move on. I really wasn't happy with the uneven gaps between the trim, so I came in with some paintable caulking, and this is another super tedious and time-consuming task, but I filled in every seam between every piece of trim and smoothed it down. The top was also still a little more textured than I was really happy with, so I went at it with another skim coat of wood filler. I sprayed a little bit of water on it this time just to help me get a really nice, smooth, even layer. And then once that was dry, I was ready to sand it back smooth again and go back with another layer of primer. I am painting this guy with House and Canvas Furniture paint in the color Sandstone. It's a really gorgeous, soft beige color that mimics the vibes of the West Elm dressers that I am so obsessed with. I sprayed 2 coats of paint over the whole body and the drawer fronts and let it dry. After my paint had dried for a few hours, I came back to seal everything up with some satin polyurethane like I always do. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit the record button when I was actually spraying this onto the piece, so my apologies. These Richelieu drawer pulls are going to be the new hardware on this piece. I just didn't like the black that they came in, so I gave them a couple of quick coats of Rust-Oleum Pure Gold spray paint. Next up, it was time to swap out this broken drawer guide for a new one. This is a really simple fix, guys. All you have to do is unscrew the old one and screw the new one back in. Now that my new poles are dry, it was time to measure out the center point of each of the drawers and attach them on. Now that I have all of my new hardware installed, let me give you a quick little reminder of how this dresser started out, and then I'll show you guys the incredible work of art that it has turned into.
Wish I could say I was finally over you, but that's not the truth. Everyone always keep falling in love again. What's wrong with them? I don't understand. Maybe it will pass by. Someone save me for I pass out. I'm too lonely to be done. I'ma drink at this pace. Yeah. Why am I the only one who's left in the rain with nobody to hold on to?
So, final thoughts. Is it perfect? No. Not by a long shot. Did I spend too much money on the trim material for this flip? Yeah, I did. Am I going to be lucky enough to maybe break even on this project, but still probably lose money in the end? But I'm so glad that I did it and I got this creative idea off my brain, and now I can move on to the next thing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me again today. I hope that you are inspired to get creative with your furniture. Make sure that you are subscribed before you go, and I will catch you guys next time.